Okay, I think we'll get started. So again, welcome everyone to our virtual community showcase for History 482, the history of Chinese migration. Before we begin, we just wanted to acknowledge the land that we're on. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered at UBC Vancouver is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. We also recognize that many of us are joining virtually from other areas throughout the province and potentially even beyond that. So we invite you to be present with acknowledging the lands that you are on as well. And following that, we wanted to remind you of a few housekeeping things. We also included these in the email that went out this afternoon, so please refer to that as you need. Please keep yourself muted during the showcase unless you're asking a question. There was also an e-program that was attached to the email this afternoon. We'll also be sending a link later in the chat so that you can follow along during the showcase. We will be having a Q&A session after each presentation, as well as a general Q&A at the very end. So there's a Slido link that we'll be using for that, so feel free to submit your questions there. Just to note that this event is being recorded, and we'll share the link with you afterwards. And also, this two-hour event is going to be long, so we encourage you to take a break in between as you need. All right, pass it on to Jillian.
So we would like to thank our partners at UBC, our course community partners, and our guest speakers that we've had throughout the course. We are grateful for the support and knowledge that you have provided throughout the years, and especially this year during unprecedented times. So the teaching team this year was Professor Henry Yu, Joanna Yang, myself, and Jenny Liu. And so we have our emails up here in case you need to ask us any questions later on.
So both Jillian and I were students in this program. I was a student in 2018, and Jillian was a student last year in 2019. And so we both kind of graduated into more of a teaching assistant position that's been very rewarding, I think, for both of us to continue our own learning and also to share that with the next generation of students. So just a reminder that this is what the program looks like. It was attached to the PDF to the email, and I will also send a link shortly so you can follow along. And next we'll have Professor Henry Yu say a few words.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. Trouble with the mute button. I'm sure many of you out there who have been on Zoom for the last 2 months are used to sort of telling people to unmute themselves or all kinds of Zoom etiquette. So this is an experiment. I hope many of you who have been either doing administrative meetings or teaching or just Zooming with our social lives have been profoundly changed by COVID. And I wanted to acknowledge that right away as a way of also framing this class and this community showcase.
Henry, I think you still might be muted.
Me? Oh, oops. Oh, sorry.
I think he's still muted.
Okay, I think Professor Yu is muted, right? It's not my internet, right? It's his? Okay, I think
he's muted.
Okay, I think it's, oh, I can't. Hi, Henry. Oh no, it cut out again. Okay, so it's not us, it's Henry. I just wasn't sure if it was me, so that's why I kind of stalled a little bit. These are the perils of meeting over Zoom. Maybe Jenny and Jillian, maybe could you talk about the first group really quickly, and then let's see if Henry's internet will change conditions by then.
Okay, I think I'm now unmuted.
Is it just me or is Henry's face frozen?
I don't see his face at all.
Okay, for me it's frozen. So I'll text him and let him know, but maybe Jenny and Jillian introduce the first group and then we'll figure something out.
Okay, yeah, so the first group that we have up is Daniel and Katie. So maybe if you guys could get ready. Really excited about their project. They really thought a lot about how to support and activate virtually kind of the food scene and food businesses in Chinatown. And really excited to have you hear their presentation. So I think Daniel and Katie, maybe you guys can jump in, and then if Henry has anything else to add, we'll let him add that later.
All right, so Katie will be sharing her screen and we'll get things going. Awesome. All right, so hopefully everyone can see the screen properly. So hi everyone, my name is Daniel. As a first-generation Chinese immigrant and someone who loves to travel, food is really how I remember home. It's how I remember relatives back in Beijing and how I remember places that I have traveled to. So I feel very grateful to live in a city, which is Vancouver, where so many food cultures intersect.
Is everyone muted? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Katie. As a university student and a fellow foodie who lives in Vancouver, my favorite pastime is discovering new restaurants. And for me, I visit the restaurants I know or heard of either through social media, friends, online articles, or other ways on the internet. I never really went to Chinatown or Strathcona because frankly, other than Newtown or Phnom Penh, I don't really know any other restaurants.
So young students like ourselves who don't frequent Chinatown or Strathcona and were once very unfamiliar with the neighbor's history, we often use food as a critical motivation to explore these new areas. So we're drawn to experiences that really stimulate all our senses. So take a look at this video. So unfortunately, the restrictions of gatherings during this pandemic has really depleted these areas of its usual liveliness and unique atmosphere of the dine-in experience, which includes being greeted by the staff, flipping through menus, and even the eager anticipation of your order. Therefore, wouldn't it be great to have some sort of virtual exhibition that replicates this dining experience while also educating the public about Vancouver Chinatown's rich history? And so here are a few things that we'll be going over today. And for our project, we identified our objective as answering how do we inform young Vancouver young adults of the history of Chinatown through the lens of local food culture while also shining light on restaurants in the area. So with Katie's background in media studies and my own experience in user experience design, we decided an optimal way could be to design this interactive website-based experience of Chinatown restaurants. So this project can be relevant not only during this current pandemic, but also as a great and useful information source afterwards. So as ethnic Chinese residences and businesses expanded far beyond Chinatown, the neighborhood had to redefine its identity as a tourist destination. So in ACOM Economics 2011 survey of local businesses, they informed that 58% of their client base are local residents from Chinatown and Strathcona, but only 21% are from other parts of Lower Mainland. So given this large untapped demographic, we really want to cater our exhibition to attracting Vancouver residents into Chinatown.
Okay, so here are a few numbers. Let me explain. It takes 50 milliseconds for users to form an opinion on a website, and 38% of people will stop engaging with a website if the content or layout are unattractive. 46% of consumers in one study based their decisions on the credibility of the websites on their visual appeal and aesthetics. And in 2020, 52% of website traffic comes from mobile. So what does this all mean for us? Well, if we're building a website, the design, aesthetics, and user interface is important. And so based on all of this, we created 5 criteria for a website evaluation. The ones that work really well hit the middle 3, which is design related, and audiovisual integration and storytelling are what we want to meet our objectives. And from the successful websites that we pulled, we have some elements that we see a pattern with. And so from that, we pulled these elements out and created a mood board. And so, as you can see, grid style is very popular, especially with mobile for the ease of access. And parallax scrolling is a newer design. Parallax scrolling is when the foreground moves while the background stays the same. And according to a study, it's associated with a positive attitude towards both the website and product. And scrolling was more natural to use compared with clicking, so it would be best to avoid lots of clicking. And then here are some other examples that would be good to incorporate into the final design.
Awesome. So using our research results, we've created a mock-up of this website. So this prototype uses placeholder images and dummy text to give a rough idea of its layout. And so if you take a look, this website would use scrolling as its main method of navigation with a progress bar on the side to orientate the users. And of course, we also want to inform the history of the neighborhood itself. So there will be a separate section in the form of a historical timeline and also the option to read more about Chinatown's history. So we tabulated all restaurants in Chinatown and Strathcona and found a wide assortment of cuisines. And using a grid view of restaurants and relevant visuals, it will give users a quick glance of what information we have to offer, which is also suitable for mobile use. And by hovering over an image, users can learn more about each restaurant as well. And after clicking into a restaurant, users could see a simple and clear layout of basic facts of the business with options of clicking in to learn more and see additional visual elements. We found that especially for businesses located in Chinatown, their owners mostly grew up in the neighborhood or chose location specifically wanting to give back to the community. So for example, Carol Lee is the owner of Chinatown Barbecue. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. So she's a 3rd-generation Chinese immigrant who opened a nostalgia-filled restaurant that sells traditional chashu pork at an affordable price. So by highlighting these personal motivations with attractive visuals of food, we really hope to inform unfamiliar folks of the rich history of Chinatown. So this is a very basic prototype, but some additional features could include a bilingual translation and other accessibility tools that would suit our target audience.
Okay, so with the website itself, there needs to be a way to spread awareness. According to Touch Bistro, 41% of restaurant goers tried a new restaurant entirely based on positive feedback on social media. And by 2020, there are more than 12 million users on Instagram in Canada, and it's predicted to grow by a lot more. And most of the users are ages 13 to 29, which is our target demographic. Vancouver is a city with a variety of dining options and therefore a big foodie community. We would want to target this demographic by using social media and the foodie community in Vancouver to promote this website.
And through our proposed exhibition, we really hope to tap into Vancouver's blossoming foodie culture and use creative means to recreate the ambience of eating in Vancouver Chinatown. So something that mimics the regular experience of walking into Kam Wai Dim Sum and ordering some hagao to share with some friends. And although this idea was initially sparked by the challenges of this pandemic, its purpose and function really could go beyond that. And by highlighting the unique history and stories behind Chinatown restaurants, we hope to create an informative tool that shines light on the community as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Daniel and Katie. I'm sorry about my computer froze before that, and so didn't get a chance to actually frame all the projects, but you got to see firsthand from Katie and Daniel the projects they've been working on. So if you have questions for them, please use the Slido. We'll wait for you to kind of upload and post some of those questions. But I actually wanted to do what I was supposed to do before they started, which is to just explain a little bit about the projects and what you just saw. So one of the challenges of this summer class was that originally, before COVID, this was supposed to be a research travel abroad class where we were going to be in southern China in a lot of the original villages that Cantonese and Chinese migrants came from in the 19th and 20th century. We were going to be in Hong Kong. We were going to be in Penang and examine it as a heritage site with all kinds of kind of universal, intangible cultural values. We were going to be in Singapore to look at how heritage spaces were planned and how food was used. So it was an elaborate syllabus. And then COVID struck, and we thought, well, we can't go to China, so we changed the syllabus. So Jillian and Jenny were madly redid the syllabus so that we would, not go to southern China. And then we couldn't go to Asia at all, so they redid the syllabus again so that we were going to go to Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Honolulu. And then we couldn't do that. And then we were going to have the course in Chinatown, Vancouver, and then we couldn't do that. And so they went through 5 syllabus changes. So I just want to acknowledge the amount of work and the resilience that Jillian and Jenny showed in just constantly reconfiguring the course. But one of the things that didn't go away with that, and that we tried to carry on to the Zoom, other than to overcome the technical difficulties and the challenges of having a class that's meant to be immersive, intensive, to have students work together in groups and on problems that they themselves help define and solutions that they would help define together and then present it at the end. How to do that without being on the road, without traveling in essence. And so the class as it is right now and the projects that you're seeing is the product of a lot of resilience on the part of the teaching team that they constantly had to change. And I want to laud the students for being guinea pigs in this, that they were being experimented on and asked to really imagine what it would be like to be a student online and to tackle a global and local problem, basically while using Zoom and in their own rooms. And so what we ended up with as the final syllabus, you could say, and what we ended up doing in the class was to be on Zoom. A lot of our students are in different places. Some are in a different part of Canada. And we asked them, with a lot of guidance and help and input from many of our guest speakers, some of you who are here tonight, but in particular, I think John Atkin and Michael Schwartz helped us think about if we were going to ask our students to think about introducing Chinatown and Strathcona as these important historical heritage areas of Vancouver. We were asking them to help us think of how to present these places online and virtually, that they really could help the most by going out and finding the best way to do it. And so the bulk of the semester is an analysis of what works out there virtually, what are the best practices, and then to make a proposal, not to do it actually within the class, but to make a proposal as a part of 2 parts of this semester's work. And so what you just saw from Daniel and Katie is their work looking at the kinds of online interfaces that work really well, the kind of techniques like storytelling, the use of photos, not so much text, how do you engage people, and then a proposal on how to bring Chinatown alive to virtual visitors and to use storytelling to give them the background of what it's like. And so I hope to saw right away, without me having to explain, the end product of what was a semester long, or a summer semester, so really only 6 weeks. So it's very intensive, and we tried to have the students define the problem and define the solution for us. And so that's exactly what you saw. So thank you to Daniel and Katie for actually presenting that without any intro and having to launch in because of problems of the online environment. So Zoom problems are just inherent right now to our lives. And so my apologies for having a computer that has been on Zoom nonstop for 3 days and now is, I think, just overheating and about to give up. Slido questions. We have a couple minutes, hopefully, to address any questions to Katie and Daniel so that they can give some quick answers. Jenny, Jillian? Yeah.
Yep. Great presentation. Have you shared your prototype with any of the restaurants you're highlighting? If so, what feedback did they provide?
I can answer that. Because it's for the purpose of a school project, we didn't feel comfortable, I guess, bothering some of these restaurants for just another student project. So we didn't show them any of the prototypes. So unfortunately, no feedback as of now.
Thanks, Daniel. And a nice way to plug this is that we think that if these proposals are really persuasive and good, that in fact, after the class is over, that we'll take some of these pitches, it's kind of like Dragon's Den on Zoom, to some of the places that we hope will see the benefit of it, and maybe we'll get some feedback as well as some people really interested in seeing the students follow through on their projects. Any other? So Gillian, any others that we'll also have time at the end of all the presentations to keep asking the students questions, but we just want to give a chance for immediate sort of feedback and questions. But thank you so much. Yeah, we'll go on to the next group, but the Zoom applause for Katie and Daniel for the hard work they put into this, and really a good job of also a very visually stimulating presentation. So nicely done. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Katie. Move on to the next presentation, which is from Katie, Tiffany, and Rose.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany and my fantastic group mates are Rose and Christy. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge Jenny's previous land acknowledgement to recognize the Musqueam people, as well as the traditional owners and caretakers of the lands that you might be tuning in from. I'm just going to drop a link into our chats here. Native Land is a great resource if you'd like to learn more about the Indigenous owners of the land that you're living on. So just introducing ourselves, Rose, Christy, and I are second-generation Chinese Canadians who grew up in Metro Vancouver. And when we first began learning about Chinatown in depth through this course, we felt a lot of uncertainty about how we could contribute to Chinatown without being intrusive.
However, recognizing our positionality was the first step in shaping our project idea. So we knew we wanted to do something with social media since as young people we're on it constantly. So we started off with some research into what social media presence Chinatown already has. So in our research, we found that social media was a huge area of opportunity as Vancouver's Chinatown already has a well-established social media presence compared to other Chinatowns in Canada. These accounts are mostly run by various organizations. For example, the Chinatown BIA, Chinatown Foundation, and Chinatown Today all use social media to promote their work. However, each organization has an individually strong presence, and we found that the content of these accounts were quite siloed and promoted specific perspectives or components of Chinatown's community that were specific to their organization, rather than giving a holistic look. So additionally, aside from our research into Vancouver's Chinatown, we also looked at various global Chinatowns and successful online content in general. And based on all of this, we created the following SWOT analysis chart. So for this presentation, I'll just briefly touch on the strengths and opportunities we found, because those are the areas we want to build on for this project. In terms of the strengths, we found that aside from the strong pre-existing social media presence of Chinatown organizations, there is also a strong youth presence in youth activism and engagement that could be potentially harnessed. Some areas of opportunity could include successful hashtag campaigns used by global Chinatowns in the wake of COVID-19, a growing appreciation for food ASMR and visual focused content on YouTube and Instagram, and increased youth interest in matters of identity and heritage, as seen with popular internet groups such as Subtle Asian Traits.
Yes, and so now I will go into a little more detail about our research, and specifically for hashtag campaigns, we looked at the examples from Chinatown in London and Australia, and what we have found is that they're very successful in creating online discussions, raising brand awareness, and most importantly, gathering support for cultural movements. And it is also a fun and interactive way for the community to engage with hosts and has a lot of potential as easily accessible crowdsourcing method online. And speaking of community, on the right, we have Photo Voice, which is another community-generated storytelling, but this project involves members given tools such as disposable cameras to capture aspects of their own life and tell their own stories without necessarily having an intrusive photographer. And as a result, it is a much more intimate and ethical way of storytelling that might be very impactful and eye-opening for communities like Chinatown. And another trend that we have chosen to analyze is the virtual food tours. And specifically, we looked at the newly trending cooking videos from Asia as shown on the left. And what we have noticed is that despite the language and cultural barriers, these forms of cooking videos successfully extend Asian food and culture to the global audiences. And so at the same time, youth communities are now starting to become more and more interested in home cooking, and especially in recreating specific cultural dishes from their childhood. And this is something that we actually have noticed the past few months on Subtle Asian Traits, where a lot of people are sharing their recipes and just kind of cooking together on the Facebook as a platform.
So from all this research, we bring you our project, Pocket Chinatown, which is an Instagram account dedicated to Chinatown storytelling. The goal of this project is to make a virtual learning experience that provides outsiders with a local understanding of Chinatown's intangible heritage without being disruptive or burdensome to the community. We hope that the content shared can also heighten awareness and appreciation for Chinatown's heritage, while also possibly increasing interest in supporting Chinatown businesses. So you might be wondering, what kind of content will be shared on Pocket Chinatown's Instagram account? Well, we split content into two main types, educational and engagement-oriented content. And we found that most successful social media accounts typically maintain a mix of both. In terms of educational content, this could include asynchronous learning activities that people could follow from home. For example, a step-by-step dumpling making tutorial or mahjong tutorial utilizing Instagram's 10-slide gallery feature. As previously mentioned, Photo Voice could be employed for content creation by asking members of the community to curate photos based around a central question or prompt, such as, what does Chinatown mean to you? In order to give outside audiences an intimate understanding of local perspectives on certain issues. Additionally, Instagram is a great platform for disseminating infographic decks, as they often provide quick and low barrier opportunities to educate people on specific topics.
As for the engagement-oriented content, this will focus on audience retention. So rather than simply just educating, we also want to make sure that the content engages audiences in a valuable and meaningful manner. And this may take the form of Instagram Live cooking sessions or Q&A opportunities that allow for a more direct communication between the host and Instagram users. And there will also be opportunities for business and restaurant promotions, but also keeping in mind to highlight their history and significance within the Chinatown neighborhood. And so for the actual implementation of this project, we have prepared a 3-level tier list for the potential cost of managing this project. So the first tier is imagined to consist of volunteers, and this would require a management figure from the organization as well as additional funding for any camera equipment or editing software, depending on what the team can or cannot already access. And the next option from there is tier 2, which involves student interns, and this will require compensation for the students, but allows for an opportunity to work alongside post-secondary institutions and programs where students are either already studying in relative fields or show great interest in the community and are passionate about the work that they apply to do. And lastly, the third tier involves hiring a team of professionals, which would bring in expert advice on social media marketing and content curation, but can also be extremely costly compared to the other two options. And so overall, this project would be suitable for any existing Chinatown organizations that are interested in expanding their pre-existing social media outreach.
In conclusion, Pocket Chinatown is a project that creates a virtual learning opportunity that is fitted to Chinatown's unique context of storytelling. We've drawn from the successful strategies of creators and organizations from around the world, and this can be an easy addition to strengthen existing opportunities in Chinatown's social media landscape. We hope that Pocket Chinatown can be successful in not only increasing Chinatown's online engagement, but also in engaging audiences in a meaningful way around the history and intangible heritage of Vancouver Chinatown. Thank you so much for listening. We'll now open up the floor to any questions or feedback you might have.
Thanks, Christy and Tiffany and Rose. As you're putting in Slido questions, I just wanted to say that this group is a great example of actually the interdisciplinary nature of the class. Some of them are art students, Christy and Tiffany. Tiffany's also doing a master's in management at this time, and Rose is from land and food systems. And so one of the things that I've always really found so rewarding, in our classes when we have traveled is that, we have students from all kinds of backgrounds and working together and bringing their strengths. And really, all those strengths can be something they've learned in classes and to their majors, but more often it's who they are, languages. A lot of our students are multilingual. They grew up in different parts of the world. They have different interests. Some are like photography, others can code, some are kind of addicted Instagram users. I'm not sure that was the case here, but you can see their familiarity with Instagram as a platform really shines through in their work and in this proposal they've made. So Jillian, I don't know if you've gotten some questions to throw towards Christy and Tiffany and Rose.
We have kind of a fun question. So someone asked, they say, loved your presentation. Out of curiosity, did you draw your own caricatures?
So I guess I can answer this, but no, we did not. But I tried to find the ones that best kind of represented each person, and I hope I did a good job. But yeah, we found them online.
I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah. Great question. Actually, it's an interesting thing because I was actually wondering that because we've had many students in the past who had illustrator skills that we didn't know, and so we've had animation in previous years' projects. We've had all kinds of stuff, and currently right now, as part of our story gathering team of students who are all former students from the classes from years before, we've got a great illustrator, Debbie, who's made our videos, actually the ones that we've been producing for a Seat at the Table exhibit, the UBC MOV exhibit that's opening actually quite soon, next month. And we've had all kinds of amazing things that we were able to do that would have cost tens of thousands of dollars. So we're kind of exploiting this talented student, but we try to actually find things about the students that are their skills that they perhaps, if we thought of them as empty vessels to be filled with knowledge, we wouldn't even care. But we really are starting from the perspective of what are the students' interests and what are the skills they already bring to each other in a group, and so that they are valued for who they are and what they bring already to the table. And if there's another one you want to throw in before we go to the next group, Jenny?
Some kind of positive comments. John says cooking videos from restaurants are a nice touch. And there's also a question from Kate. Do you personally think this is better than a dedicated website per se, like a virtual exhibition? So I think referring to your Instagram platform.
Yeah, I can definitely address that. I think Instagram is already a platform that a lot of people have access to. So usually it can be pretty tough to try to promote a website because I think, as someone might have mentioned in the Slido, that there are a lot of sites that have a lot of search engine optimization, and they're already promoted to the top of Google. So utilizing Instagram will allow organizations to promote this content to their current audiences better, but it also allows for things to be shared more easily. So people can send it as a message and share posts to their story and things like that. So having this on an existing platform makes it a lot easier to promote this content as a virtual exhibition rather than having a dedicated website that people have to work to go to.
That's great. Thanks, Tiffany. It's really great answer. I think one of the things also that really struck me about this group is that very consciously articulating how Instagram could be used to have continual engagement and that kind of iterative engagement. So, you know, the great thing about social media that's different from a website is a website's often passive once it's done. You know, people are just visiting, whereas they've really built into their proposal this kind of this engagement that builds the audience and creates a sense of, just as a kind of, this presentation is only part of the of their semester's work. There's also a longer written paper that has a lot of the analysis and the findings from their the work that they did looking at best practices. So you're just seeing the conclusions of that analysis. If some of you are wondering, if you're interested in seeing, you know, that full analysis, again, you can we'll find a way that you can contact the students directly to see some of that. And again, if you can want to ask questions about going into a little bit more depth of their analysis, I think one of the really interesting things about having gone through that process is to be able to even answer a question about why is social media the right way to go. And subtle Asian traits actually is a, how many users are on there? Tiffany and Christy and Rose, like 1.4 million on Facebook as a Facebook page. And so a lot of that activity that they analyzed after looking at a lot of sites, you know, across the board, they're bringing that to the table and being able to explain why. I don't know if you actually, maybe that's I'll ask you that question. It's like, what is it about Facebook's subtle Asian traits sort of group that you found so useful to think about? Anyone? Rose, Tiffany? Yeah.
I can answer. Oh, Rose, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, aside from there being like a large community, I think it's like very niche. Like the people in subtle Asian traits are all interested in like the same kind of topics of identity and heritage. So a lot of the posts that people share are very relatable. And the other thing is kind of what we touched on in our presentation, but that aspect of community-based storytelling. So anyone can share content on the group. So it's very easy for people to share personal stories. And in that way, it's just very like intimate, even though there's over 1 million people in the group. And yeah.
Yeah, and I want to also add, they also have a lot of subgroups. So if you're interested in a specific area, so for example, there's one called Asian Creative Network, and that's for a bunch of creatives to just connect with each other within like the subtle Asian traits, like bigger groups. So I think the subgroups are also a really good point for the platform and how it connects people all together.
And overall, we found all of this, this giant network of over 1 million youth to really be indicative of the mass interest and hunger for cultural content that a lot of second generation Asian Canadians, Asian Americans, Asian Australians have for understanding their history and heritage. So we saw this as a really good indicator for the type of demand for this type of content.
Great, thanks. I mean, it's actually amazing because it's kind of like pre-made market demographic research along with the platform to reach them, along with already all the hints on how to reach people within that demographic. So really great research work that both the first two groups, Daniel and Katie and Tiffany, Rose, and Christy did. So thanks so much. Again, I see there's a lot of questions that are also piling up in Slido, but we'll keep compiling them, and then we'll ask some of those at the end of the presentations as well. But we want to move on to the next group. Thanks. Another virtual hand for Christy, Rose, and Tiffany, and great piece of work that they did. So the next group, well, if they're queued up. Okay.
Okay. Are we starting?
So go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so our project is about virtual experiences of Vancouver Chinatown via WeChat. And my name is Candace, and it's presented by me, Haojun, and Jason Tian. Okay, So let's start with the background and introduction. So Vancouver Chinatown is the largest Chinatown in Canada and its main national historical sites in 2011. It also attempted to be included by UNESCO from 2018. So it's also the collective treasure of Chinese community, and it contributes to Canada a lot. And however, it's been suffered from discriminatory policymaking, such as the hat tax and also the Chinese Immigration Act. By delivering historical and cultural heritage contents through WeChat, we're exposing our target audience to more of the Vancouver Chinatown heritage, both tangible and intangible.
So why three of us? So we're a mixture of a Chinese international student, Canadian, and a Canadian new immigrant. So us three combined, we're pretty much the best trio to demonstrate and implement through our project by applying our varied cultural knowledge and that matches the theme of our project and being fitted within the target audience group. So our target audience is 18 to 23 years old, new Chinese immigrants with Chinese language proficiency and Chinese culture background. And the reason why we chose this specific age group is we want to present them with the local Chinese culture informations, and we want to help them to build a local network within the Chinese culture. So so we were comparing different platforms when it comes to delivery method. So we chose between WeChat, Facebook, and Weibo, which is like a Twitter, but a Chinese version of Twitter. So comparing WeChat with Facebook, WeChat has 1.1 billion monthly active user, while 90% being Chinese. And Facebook, on the other hand, have a 2.07 billion monthly active users, but taking into account only 3 million Chinese users. That is less than 1% of the total users there. And we did some research, and research shows that WeChat has a stronger correlations when it comes to sharing information within the same cultural background, while Facebook being very convenient when it comes to connecting people within this local social network. Comparing WeChat with Weibo, WeChat also shows a stronger correlations when it comes to social networking and then sharing news consumptions. Well, Weibo is good for event presentations. And taking into account that WeChat also has 3 times the user base Weibo. So comparing when it comes to delivering. And steps to create our virtual experience. First, we articles on our official accounts, such as introductories. It could be Chinatown historical buildings and their meanings and significance to the Chinatown area. And it could be also storytelling, such as featuring people's poetries and their experience growing up within the Chinatown areas. And we will be seeking cooperations with existing local Chinese WeChat official accounts who has a average viewer of 1,000 constantly, such as Van People. And we will be advertising through their WeChat official accounts at the beginning for a jumpstart.
So thank you. And when it comes to why we're choosing WeChat to be the primary platform, there are 3 reasons. Number 1, as Jason has said, the sheer size of the user base of WeChat has been very large. And a large portion of that is actually overlapping with our target audience, which is the 18 to 23 years old, younger generation, and Chinese being like one of their primary languages. And number 2 is for the promotional method of WeChat. I think that WeChat has a pretty smart or efficient logic to promote these posting from public accounts like us. And so basically, based on the past experiences, seeing others maintaining a WeChat platform, the good postings like touching stories and attractive sites and interesting contents, it will be transformed into good response instantly. That you don't need to go extra far. You don't need to pay a whole tons of extra effort to make people see your content. And the third one is has been the compatibility of WeChat. Actually, WeChat has the ability to squeeze all kinds of all forms of contents like videos, audios, photography, and articles and vlogs and whatever we're gonna have, and to put them into one single posting instead of just falling into their own categories and all over the place. And for the details in the promotional method of WeChat, as you can see, like the sharing function, the public space synchronizations and pushing to subscribers, all these are like the conventional methods that every other social media platform has. But I think what is unique about WeChat is, number one, the application. It's like the little apps designed for the WeChat ecosystem to bring that a more vivid, a more interactive user experiences, instead of just making people read what you have, watch your content, and listen to your content. It's actually making people like enjoying the interactive experiences through the WeChat platform itself. And another thing that WeChat has been really good at is the ability to integrate or to combine the online content with the offline realities and activities. Due to, based on the research, a lot of entities and corporations has been working on to make WeChat as their primary gateway or a display platform to show people what they have, to attract people to their actual sites. The example we have for relevant entities are the Palace Museum in Beijing. So as we can see, these are the WeChat public account, and they're like applets that I have mentioned. So the first one on the left is actually like a virtual guide or virtual map to help people that are actually visiting the Palace Museum, to take them, save their time and take them where they want to go, and to bring a more fun, a more efficient touring experiences. And number two, like the one in the middle, is actually the WeShop. It's another applet, and what it does is to show people, or to you can buy some peripheral merchandises about the Palace Museum on this platform. And number three is like these kinds of informational updates about seminars and special events, activities, and updates of the collection and narratives of the collections. All these works to bring people more interested or more attracted by the actual Palace Museum, and they will actually get to know this place and visit there. Another good example is this is like the theoretical support for our project, that social media really works in promotion of soft power and pop culture. A good experience is the Korean Wave 2.0, like how South Korea has been promoting or expanding their pop culture through the power of social media during the past decade or less time, to create that fandom economy and you know. And then we come to cooperation and funding. For the cooperation part, for the promotional method purpose, we're going to cooperate with UBC CSSA, the Chinese Student Union of UBC, and other university or colleges, Chinese student unions. The reason has been like they're sufficient for reaching out to the our target audience groups, like students and people within this age demographic, for news update, for events planning, for everything. And another thing is that we're looking for sponsorship or support from China Chamber of Commerce and the consulate in Vancouver, because these organizations has been really dedicated to like the celebration and promotion of Chinese and historical heritage in Vancouver Chinese community. So, and here are the examples of the student unions. You can see SFU and UBC and KPU, and there are a whole tons of other schools and institutions, student unions. And for more detailed financial model, we're going to move on to Candace Park.
Yeah, thank you. So, can you hear me? Okay. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a financial model of WeChat. So annually, there could be millions of dollars of profit from advertisements placed inside the posts of WeChat official accounts, according to our research. So aside from messaging, WeChat has more benefits such as online shopping and distant education. And it has offered great autonomy for its official account owners, which has created commercial opportunities for various parties. And the official account's huge following are even attracting like venture capitalists to put funds in their media companies to offer more services. Okay, next. Okay, now I have 3 pictures of how an official account looks like. So in the first picture, it shows that WeChat timeline is the most common way users find content. And the second one shows that readers can click the name of the account to access its description. And then the third one shows an official account, which is called Walk the Chat. And on the account page, readers can follow the account in one click. Okay, so our project goals are to first create and promote the virtual experiences of Chinatown through WeChat to better connect the university college age new Chinese immigrants to the local community and its heritage. And via promotion and push notifications on our Chinese WeChat public account, we're exposing more new Chinese immigrants to the Vancouver Chinese culture. And not just our target audience, but even their families and friends. We're propagating the unique cultural features of Vancouver Chinatown to a broadened audience of new Chinese Canadian immigrants. And then to wrap up our presentation, the significance of this project to the local community and members are first that Chinatown will be more recognizable as a cultural heritage site among our target audience and their families and friends. Therefore, it might be able to attract more funding in terms of protection and conservation, just in case it gets into the UNESCO list. So second, through our creation and promotion of virtual experiences, there could be a boost in small-scale tourism locally and thus promote the local economy. And third, we think that Chinese newcomers could build a social network with the local community and members. Thank you. That's everything. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much. So as you're loading up questions and we sort through them, I just wanted to, again, sort of give them a virtual hand for, you can see a lot of work went into this. And I also want to point out that, you know, the framing of this course is sort of learning outcomes. It's really to have our students, despite the fact that we couldn't travel globally, to think about global issues and global problems, to tackle them virtually online by, you know, using the internet to go look at places, even if you couldn't physically get there, see how things worked in other languages, as with this group's fantastic work with Chinese language online media, and then to apply it to a local problem that could be a global problem. It's some issues facing other places in the world, but really to apply them to Chinatown and Strathcona in the case of I think this specific course. And so you saw some of the possibilities for that with this group's work, which in some sense again is built on their strengths. We didn't think of them at the beginning of the course as blank slates, but what they brought to the table was a really intimate knowledge from their own lives of how social media use was practiced among newer arrivals who came from China, who were educated in China many of times and came more recently, who still primarily use Chinese language social media, whose worldviews were shaped by it. And so you can see the thought and care that went into this group's just scoping of the problem and articulation of solutions. So I just want to pass over to Jenny or Jillian to kind of ask a question from the Slido.
Yeah, this one's from Erin. I'm curious, do you think that interest in Chinatown by new Canadians and international students is robust? Or would you also have to build that interest?
I think I'm gonna answer this. I think that just as the person experiences, like when I and my classmate were first coming to Canada like 7 years ago as international students, we were pretty interested in the Chinese cultural heritage in the local context, because it felt like people really want to see how these Chinese Canadians are different from like local Chinese people or China-born Chinese people, and but as time goes by and as people getting to know about Greater Vancouver area more, I think more people are relatively drawn to places like Richmond and Burnaby to consume or to spend their time, but those places are less authentic or less enriched in aspect of cultural heritage. So we want to just to make the good stuff in Chinatown to be seen and to be promoted to people. So that's the purpose of our project, I think.
Thanks, Haojun. So I think one of the things again, I see a lot of interest in this particular group's work, partly because it is amazing how under targeted, so to speak, that the audience that they've identified is. That perhaps because a lot of people who are professionals here in Vancouver don't have the language skills or the knowledge base to even attempt something like they have. But I really appreciate again how they built on what they know and sort of used that to provide both a scoping for the problem at hand as well as the solution. So thanks to Haojun and Candice and Jason for your work. And again, some of the questions we can ask them at the end of the showcase as well. But please join me in again thanking them and appreciating the work that they've done with some virtual clapping. So next up is Jenny, Jillian. We've got we'll queue up the next group.
So we have Eric, Kyra, Zobing, and Taehi.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric.
Hello, my name is Kara.
My name is Taehi.
My name is Harry.
And we're very excited to show all of you what we have come up with these past few weeks. Also, I want to apologize in advance for not having my camera on. My computer doesn't have one, and I unfortunately never got around to fixing the camera on my phone, which I broke a few months ago. Anyways, I think most of us love sharing our food, although not necessarily in the physical sense, because that gesture is so reserved for the people around us that we love and care about. What I'm talking about is sharing our food online. Whether it be on Instagram or Snapchat, I often post pictures of my food online before I dig in. I take the photo, adjust the brightness, slap on a filter, and upload it for all my friends to see. It is not uncommon for your friends or followers to become so intrigued in the food that you have posted that leads them to ask where you got it from. Social media has become such an irreplaceable tool, not only for connecting with others, but also for deciding on where to eat. My group members and I always thought it was interesting that when we see Chinese food being posted on our friends' social media accounts, we rarely see them tag or eat at any restaurants in Chinatown. In fact, when my friends are eating Chinese food, we often end up in Richmond. I ask myself, why is that? We forget that most of the people our age, teens to early 20s, are unfamiliar with the cuisine that Chinatown has to offer. Chinatown hosts some of the most unique types of Chinese food, whether traditional or fusion, filled with rich history and personal stories that you really can't find anywhere else. That's why we came up with the idea of creating a virtual food tour that aims to show all of Chinatown's unique cuisines and heritage for the uninitiated. Through food, we hope to draw new faces into Chinatown, strengthen the area's heritage, and to help preserve this iconic neighborhood. So before we dive into a more in-depth explanation of our virtual food tour, we would like to first discuss some of the best practices that we have found in existing research and case studies done on virtual tours around the world. In this study on virtual tourism published in the Journal of Tourism and Marketing, they outlined several guidelines for effective virtual tours. The first was to implement interactivity that will allow the participants to become more of a player rather than a watcher. Research has shown that leisure experiences are dynamic, emergent, and embedded in personal stories. So instead of having a static linear process, it is best for participants to experience virtual tours their own way so they can select activities and content that they want to be involved in. This leads to the second point, which is to simplify information. Although we want to show everyone Chinatown's rich history and heritage, the truth is some people will only be interested in the food. Allow for an option where people can easily find more information if they wanted to. The last was to be careful of manipulating the tourism experience. Information presented in the virtual food tours should reflect the true characteristics of the destination so people have the right expectations coming in. Exaggeration of attractions in virtual tours may attract consumers in the short run, but could cause dissatisfaction with their actual experience, driving them away from repeat visits.
An example we found is the ATL Food Tour Box. It's an excellent roadmap for how to develop a food-based tour to replace a traditional walking tour. This tour was developed due to the COVID-19 crisis in order to continue the support of some Atlanta restaurants and to find alternative ways to connect with visitors. This tour takes a unique approach. First, you need to physically order a box of supplies, including ingredients for 5 dishes from 3 different Atlanta restaurants. The virtual part is the experience comes in the form of the food preparation, which you follow along with a video link from local chefs that take you through the preparation process, in addition to providing historical facts. The tour can also be completed at the visitor's own time. The box is expensive, costing $180. Considering the visitors are not able to enter the restaurants to experience the food itself. The expense is justified because a portion of the payment supports Atlanta's Giving Kitchen, a food bank offering emergency food assistance, which is important during the time of COVID-19. Based on our research, positive aspects that we want to include in our food tour are a rich telling of the history and the context of the Chinese food served throughout the neighborhood. Focusing on the historical value of a tour is very important within the Chinatown's context. We could introduce readers to the personal side. It is necessary to showcase food in Chinatown or photos and to include information about the ingredients as well. The Atlanta Food Tour Box was a great example of how a tour can be done on your own time, and also works with local businesses to provide an immersive experience. Aspects to be avoided in the tour include the price of the food tour box. In order for more people to understand and explore the culture of the Chinatown, we need to make it accessible to everyone. Creating a free tour with the option to have the delicious food delivered to your house would be an excellent way to find a compromise to the issue.
And to go back on social media can be used as a strong tool to introduce virtual food tours to a wide population, especially those young generation Chinese students and Chinese international students, because they are particularly attracted to such media. And it can be used to promote foods and stories in local shops and other businesses in Vancouver, Chinatown. For example, Instagram influencers could visit these restaurants and post food photos with comments on Instagram. And YouTubers also can visit those sites and writing stories combined with the video they make to attract visitors online. And we are in the conclusions part.
So yeah, for conclusion, all in all, we would like to create a tour that offers opportunities to demonstrate the personal stories of the struggles of individual store owners and the stories of the food itself in order to provide an immersive experience. A virtual tour of Vancouver's Chinatown should demonstrate that offerings of area restaurants, the uniqueness of Chinatown's cuisine, the development of fusion foods and its westernization, the variety that exists between trendy locals and more traditional restaurants, and the history that explains all these events. In studying other types of virtual tours, we can begin to develop a food tour of Vancouver's Chinatown that is visually pleasing, inexpensive, informative, and on an easily navigatable website, while simultaneously avoiding issues like only seeing photographs of food and limiting our tour to only a few users. So once again, our aim for this project is to understand the stories and hardships that people involved in Chinatown through the food. We hope that our attempt to connect and understand different cultures and convergence of cultures in different countries will be effective enough to actually make people understand that we could see each other in a better adapting way in this diversified world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much to the group for, again, it's interesting. There's a running theme here that that each of the groups has figured the best way to deliver their content is social media, and in some sense, for some of the audience out there who are perhaps I wouldn't call you a little older, but more experienced in life and used to other media. It's interesting that that maybe you know, the solutions that someone who is from an earlier generation might not be so dependent in some sense on the kinds of social media that are just the air that people of this particular age group, that the students themselves are aiming at, the air they breathe, and the air that in some sense the students themselves who are doing the presentations breathe. So just as a note on, you know, it's how innovative some of these approaches, even as you see the overlap between food and the practices of around eating and the interest in eating, it's still you know, tied to certain platforms and certain approaches that are again tied to who they are. So maybe some that'll give enough time for a question to come from Slido. Jenny?
Yeah, we have one question for this group. I love the food box idea. Would you think this virtual tour would be interesting even without COVID?
Yes, I think it would be like interesting, like with or without COVID, because if there's no COVID like pandemic, we more people would like be attracted and just go out and yeah, they'll just taking the like the real tour and visiting the sites that introduces in our website. Yeah.
Thanks, Zubin. It's a really interesting question about, actually, because we had predicated this course on some of these virtual research as well as the virtual solutions. And I think that's a great question for all the groups to think about, is like, if we ever return to the next normal where people, you know, aren't using Zoom constantly in their homes, and as we actually relax a lot of the restrictions, is it still, you know, a solution, so to speak, for how to get people engaged? Especially, I think the use of the social media by several of the groups in their proposals are really more about engagement than, it's not built on this negative that you can't go out in the world. It's actually, it strikes me a lot of the proposals are based on utilizing the power of social media to create a sense of engagement and expanding the base of people who who are aware and care about Chinatown. So thanks for that answer. And in some sense, it's also a certain kind of experience to be able to get that box and have say a chef, do a video showing you how to make it. And instead of a passive watching of a cooking show, there really is this aspect that you're making something that you would love at the restaurant, or maybe you've eaten at the restaurant, or will eat at the restaurant, but you're hands-on practicing how to make it and being told through a video or through a live stream about how to make it by the chef who invented that dish. So it's a really wonderful idea that you guys have sort of found in your research. Thanks Zubin and Eric and Tihi and Kyra. So again, if you have other questions for them, we'll have some time hopefully at the end for some follow-ups. But the next group is Karen and the rest of them. Okay.
Marina and Tim. Tim will
Great. Tim.
Great.
Okay. So Tim's going to say.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much. We really appreciate everyone for taking your time on such a Wednesday afternoon to listen to our community showcase. And I saw some familiar faces here. They are like my friends or some other faces that are sort of presented in this class before. So I think today we want to address to a lot of the viewers of us, including the seniors and the youths. So our title is Passing the Torch, and it means 薪火相传 in Chinese. What it means is that we're trying to create a project, a virtual engagement that passes the legacies and memories of the seniors to the next Vancouver youth generation, that fosters intergenerational communication and engagement through social media platforms. And then I'll start with a little bit of my intro. My name is Serena. I'm from the mainland China, and I have some members who immigrated here, and they live in Surrey right now. I've been interested in Chinese people's living conditions and online or offline political participation locally in Vancouver as well, and understanding the cultural similarities and differences between Chinese and other ethnicities in Canada. And I hope to learn more about the Chinese Canadian communities through Chinatown. And then I'll yield my floor to my teammates.
Hi. My name is Tim. I'm not sure if my video is showing properly, or at least my slides. But I'll go to my point real quick. I came to Vancouver from Malaysia 7 years ago. It was only 1 year that I happened upon Chinatown's history. It happened somewhat by happenstance only when I started volunteering in Chinatown as well. And that pushed me to want to develop ways to help share the stories that exist here already. Now moving on to Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm a sociology student in UBC. And Chinatown has always been very important to me because growing up, every week I would go with my grandparents to buy groceries, to visit the doctor. I learned Mandarin at Saturday school in Chinatown at the Chinese Cultural Center, and I also did traditional Chinese dancing in Strathcona. And growing up, I didn't really place any importance to Chinatown, but as I became more engaged in middle school and high school, working with some of these organizations, just volunteering, I think the importance really stood out to me in terms of the significance that it serves. So for slide 2, for many seniors, Chinatown isn't only a place where they live, but it's also where basic necessities are met, whether that's buying groceries, visiting the doctors, or having community events such as mahjong or learning English. A lot of seniors live their whole lives in Chinatown. However, linguistic barriers, racial discrimination, and limited support in accessing services present daily challenges that erode the seniors' livelihood. There are a lot of things that contribute to Chinatown's decline, and some of which we'll get into later on. So first, we wanted to introduce some of the organizations in Chinatown already that exist that work with seniors and that try and have an intergenerational community building. So having worked with Yarrow, YCC, and other organizations in Chinatown for A gap we encountered is that many of the issues and hardships faced by the most vulnerable citizens in our community are not being heard by a wider audience. They're not being heard by youth. We want to garner collective action from youth to care about seniors and support them in amplifying their voices and to help them help themselves. We want to motivate people to know more about these issues and invoke a sense of responsibility to do something about it. So Yarrow, as an active volunteer with Yarrow, I know that the executive team do a lot to support seniors. So we assist in grocery hauls during COVID, as well as do medical accompaniments, and we do translation and interpretation. While the volunteers and the executive team know a lot about the issues that go on in these seniors' lives, people outside don't often know. And I think that's also because we focus on kind of like the person-to-person interaction that we do to help them, rather than telling everybody, oh, this is what we need to do. And then another group, Chinatown Action Group, not pictured here, is an intergenerational community organization that fights for the social justice in Chinatown to build a progressive voice within the Chinese community. From what we found, there's a lack of media user engagement to the public, and the depth of the issues are not listed. We believe that Chinatown Action Group is supportive in their stance and advocacy, but the general public doesn't know too much about it. So last but not least, Youth Collaborative for Chinatown supports intergenerational community building through the activation of public space, through hot and noisy events, survival Cantonese classes, and other activities throughout the year. Again, I think in identifying why we do this through these organizations, the importance of it, then we can get more people to care and gain collective activism in these issues. So the goals that we have in our project is that we want to understand the needs of seniors and amplify their voices to a wider audience. We want to assist in the development of Chinese senior services in the community, and we want to encourage community participation. But our biggest goal is to connect these stories with younger generations and to reach out to people of all backgrounds to ensure that Chinatown is increasingly relevant. To do this, our group proposes a virtual telling of the lived experiences of Chinatown seniors through visual and audio testimonials to bring to light some of the hardships and issues that the most vulnerable citizens in our community, many of who are frail, monolingual, low income, living at the poverty line, are going through. These stories will illuminate the neighborhood and help viewers unpack themes of decline, displacement, and community resilience through interactive media such as photos, video montages, and audio clippings. Serena?
Karen mentioned the significance of representing seniors through virtual platforms, and I'm going to start showing some of the boring stuff of the data, but they're important and significant because they can show us which audience group to target at. And then we found that this data from Global Web Big Index of Canadian Media Use Habits, it shows youths are majority of users of social media content in Canada as of May 2020. So we're probably going to mainly target at the youth demographic age between 18 to 34, and also the major platforms that they use are YouTube, Facebook Messenger, and Twitter, Instagram. So we're going to mainly analyze contents from these platforms as well. And then, but in terms of senior, what do we know about senior media use habits? Even if seniors are not the most active users on social media, there's an increased tendency for them to get more involved with social media and virtual content being more popular all over the world, basically. And what we found is that even if there's an increased use of seniors on social media, the baby boomers generation here is that they still feel less represented and less responded by social media platforms, even if they're using it more. So we're thinking of ways to get seniors feel more represented on social media platforms in the Chinatown context as well. And in terms of what techniques are going to be useful for us to do that, I show you an article, The Future of Social Media Marketing, from Journal of the Academy of Marketing Science. It's co-authored by scholars from some USC, Dartmouth College, and Oxford Business School. So it shows that the social media in the present context is that is serving a more and more important role in connecting communities, especially when the individualism is getting more sort of, it's getting more popular among the youths, but then social media is getting more important for us to feel a sense of community online. And also websites and applications are getting embedded with social media functions. That means there is an increasing interfaces between different media platforms, and social media are increasingly connected with all aspects of our lives, including travel, work, and food. So that gives us white space for how we might engage Chinatown online. Just gives us, leaves us a lot of space for our analysis. And then in the future of what kind of social media content is going to be more appealing, the research says that sensory rich ones, that ones that make the audience and viewers feel more of like sensory and more authentic, including some kind of augmented reality or like a virtual audio content that we're going to mainly be analyzing in our analysis. And then Tim will tell you more about those.
Hey. Yeah, so this is just basically what guided our analysis for several sites. There are a couple of things worth pointing out. One, we pay a lot of attention to user engagement, simply the amount of likes and comments a site or a product gets. It's a simple way for us to determine if the product itself is successful, if it's able to reach out to the audience that it has. We also look specifically at how these sites engage in activism, if they provide resources and guidance to motivate action, also because it's an important part of what our goal to help promote awareness and youth involvement. Next, please. And based on our criteria, when we look upon the sites that were successful in this sort of number standpoint, what we found is that the sites, what we found that link the sites together of these successful sites beyond activism that I mentioned earlier are 4 common traits. There's beauty, in which the site itself or the content they produce has some visual element that's beautiful and captivating to the eye and to the audience, generally speaking. It's a consistency to the content that's being produced, so audience therefore knows what to expect upon repeat viewership. There's an aim for authenticity, where successful content often brings an idea of truth to the viewers, is what we want for ours as well. And multimedia interfaces. Many of these sites use social media to wrap around each other, either Facebook linking to a YouTube site, linking to the website, and back and forth. So it all is quite cohesive. And moving on, looking specifically at social media activism. One site in particular that we think does quite well in using social media to push forward with their sort of educational agenda is thenshow.org. Recently they had a Black Lives Matter post that garnered essentially the highest engagement they had all year. And it kind of showcases the importance of engaging with the current climate today and what they were doing, what we hope to do as well. Oftentimes because organizations like Denshow, they have their own sort of message to bring to the wider organization, to the wider discussion. And also good for engagement, from a more like number standpoint. But also I think, can you go back one? Thank you. They use, one thing they do quick mention as well is that they use contemporary ideas to relate to their own core message to add the conversation set, and they're linked to their own blog and their website, which itself suggests even more ways for people to engage in activism. So the whole thing is quite cohesive and engages people and brings them to the site. And is a quite common practice for their social media site, and something that we would like to engage with as well to help engage in the Vancouver populace. Moving back to Serena.
Yeah, and just as to mention how important it is that we engage in political and activist conversations, some of what I found is that certain apolitical means, we don't always all need like strict political analysis to get people engaged online, especially with this like increasingly interested in like visual audio content, like exciting visual and audio content viewers. This site that I'm going to analyze, I want to highlight on the importance of art and how showcasing the colorful aspects of community life can be appealing as well. This site is Squamish Lewis Cultural Center in Whistler, is SLCC. It is a museum and art gallery based in Whistler. On the site, people from Squamish nations and Lewis nations come together to celebrate their traditional cultures with the world while creating meaningful employment opportunities for their members. It does not only store the physical objects, it also shows the unique crafts towards cultural activities and food of the indigenous communities. So it's interesting because it has a wide variety of indigenous people's food cooking and cultural performances videos. Each of them has like around 100 or 50 or around 100 or more viewers. It's because they engage participants across age groups and across ethnic groups, including juniors, children, youth, adults, seniors, people from the indigenous community, Asian communities, or other communities. Their cultural events are quite adaptable to modern consumers' needs as well. Some of them even look like cultural carnivals. I'm not showing a video here, but you can see their performances in here. And I saw a lot of like the young children sort of participating as well, and they look very excited. They also have some pretty posters of their like film like cooking and singing events in here, and then making the artifacts, showing these online. And also this at the left that you can see, this is a chef sort of sharing a cooking video content with people following this page, but this chef is also an indigenous activist. So that means while we're showcasing the interesting community cultural practices, we're also engaging people meaningfully and even politically within the conversation. And the right picture is about indigenous communities having their songs volumes that are sort of appealing to people interested even in pop cultures or music as well. So what I've found interesting from their Facebook page is that they have lots of reviews from viewers and followers, and they actively respond to them. That means their viewers and their followers are like having their own communities, or they can see other kind of reveals of the website. One viewer says she learned about the wisdom of living off the land responsibly from the indigenous people after visiting the museum. So maybe some events or or virtual content that showcase traditional, in our context, the showcase traditional Chinese practices and seniors' wisdom or philosophies are also helpful to deepen our understanding of Chinatown seniors. I saw some like Chinese websites in Vancouver that talks about ideas such as like 天人合一 translates to the harmony between nature and people in traditional Chinese philosophies that could potentially inspire sustainable urban development thinking. Yeah, it goes to my Tim.
We're just going to talk about a few more sites. What we realized is that the sites that achieve sort of virality, a great expanse in reaching people, as I mentioned before, is through the sort of beauty and consistency and all that thing. Thank you. Moving on to back to Sweden.
Yeah, and these two are more brief sites that I want to analyze. This is a YouTube influencer basically named Li Ziqi, and she's quite a famous blogger both in China, Chinese social medias, and all around the world. And a lot of people say that after watching her video, they feel the sense of like peacefulness. Basically, it shows the beauty of village life, of the authentic intergenerational interactions that make her video so appealing. She has like 10 million followers on YouTube, for example, and there are a lot of user communities on Facebook groups named after her, and those are just all people loving her cooking and life practices sort of videos. And there's something about video editing and intergenerational interactions that are helpful to learn from her videos, such as when she uses the combination of close shots and distance shots that showcase the beautiful landscapes that she lives in that make people feel more interested in her life. And also when she engages with her grandma, she uses her local dialect of like Sichuan language. And that makes people feel the sense of authenticity, that she's not just imposturing as like a YouTube influencer. She doesn't just want to make money, or she's actually doing something very like emotional and touching as someone from our youth generation trying to serve and trying to better the lives of the senior and elder generations.
On to Karen.
So as mentioned, visuals is really important, especially in interviews. So we can see here how visually attractive and engaging camera work can be used in video formats. So for example, on the left, you see Humans of New York, which captures the story being told and not just what they're saying, but also the environment in which they're in. And then moving on to the next slide. So this is Densho, and Densho's videos also show a similar story in highlighting people's experiences and lived experiences, but it's not as viral. You can see there's only about tens of thousands of views. And what is the difference is that it lacks the technical beauty that the previous examples showed. And this can be shown in quality production, and which basically highlights that visuals and aesthetic is really important when you're trying to show camera work and videos. Next slide. Again, this just to show, this is Humans of New York on their Instagram page. Very simple, just a picture of their face along with their stories in the description, and you can see that they have a couple hundred thousand likes and thousands of comments. The next one, please. Again, website design is also really important, and with Honey, Humans of New York on the left, it's very clear and visually engaging. They know that they know their audience, they know their product, and they know that they come here to read the stories. So that's the first thing you see. Densho's website is the same as well. Next slide, please.
I'll go back.
All right. So one thing that all these successful social media channels do is that their posts and contents are generally quite consistent in style. Audiences, as I said before, know what to expect, and that creates repeat viewership. You can see it both in Honey's Facebook, Honey's Instagram, Densho's Facebook, even in their more educational posts have a similar style towards them. Next slide, please. This is one more example of Honey doing their Facebook thing, which it's a format that we hope to adapt for our own as well. Move on. So all this looking towards success, looking towards viewership numbers does pose some dangers. This project is called South White Underbelly. And just from a pure viewership standpoint, they have been incredibly successful. Viewers have been clearly been captivated by their videos. As you can see by the millions of views of many of the top videos. And they include all the many markers of successful site, a consistent design and product, beautiful style of showcasing things that's captivating to many people. It does kind of showcase, however, some of the dangers of aiming for success. South White Underbelly have quite often been called for being exploitative, and here we can show some things that we can hopefully avoid in our endeavor. Next slide, please. One big thing is we've got just from the title itself. The titles of their videos tend to reduce individuals to just a single word or a single idea. In this case, a morally charged one as well, and it's all in a way to sort of draw attention.
Can you raise up your voice a little bit? I can't really hear you clearly.
Hi.
Yeah.
How's this?
Yeah.
And,
essentially,
and maybe move it along too. Like we're running low on time.
Sorry. Yeah. Essentially, we want to encourage thoughtful engagement. So we want to take care to work with Chinatown's residents and people and organizations there to create stories that are important to the people there and shed them in a diverse light. Okay, we can move on. To Serena.
Oh, I think that this is also about the interface idea that we talked about earlier, that we want the website and YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everything to be connected. And this is like a GIF of what Tim created of how we want our mock website to be. Oops, sorry. So that's basically like a model of it. And then next is about some potential financial models that could be connected to offline activities. I don't want to go too much into the details here. So basically it's connecting certain local people created online merchandise, online shops, or Chinatown featured online merchandises And what would be helpful is to host online events of storytellers, of activism, such as this one hosted by Vancouver Public Library about Indigenous storytelling, featuring activists using these like Zoom or online platforms. And some further implications would be we want to create a dynamic user community that could potentially sustain itself. And just as what my teammates and our team is mostly focused on, virtual engagement, and that's something mainly we want to say, but for further and some other potential stages of development offline, if there is a dynamic online virtual community, then we can create events that engage these people that could be offline, that could be like even profitable, but that's not our main goal. And we can foster collaborations with other Vancouver public institutions, such as Vancouver Chinese Canadian Museum, Vancouver Cultural Central, etc. And last of all, we want to emphasize that we're not trying to create a stereotypical or linear image of the Chinatown seniors, as a lot of the formal interviews or public hearings sort of show them. We want to make this project senior-centered really, and to make people understand the colorful, multifaceted aspects of senior lives, and also echoing the UNESCO values of diversity and inclusion and anti-racism and equality. We really hope this project will be able to empower the seniors as well as engaging the youths to understand the seniors better. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, that was a little long. That's 3 times longer than we had allotted you guys, but I'm very mindful that there's still another group. So if there are any questions for that group, we're gonna slip them to the end. So I want to move on. Thanks, Timothy, Serena, and Karen, but move on to the last group. I want to make sure that they have the time to present their project. We can queue up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you to the last group for your meaningful presentation on providing seniors with a social media platform. Hello everyone, welcome. Our names are Sophia, Aman, and Tiffany. Before we start, we wish to begin by acknowledging that we're on land that is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. But we can't just leave it there. My team and I recognize the privilege that we hold as children of immigrants from Taiwan, Kenya, and Hong Kong. Today, Vancouver is still the home to many Indigenous people, and we are grateful to have this opportunity to study on this stolen land. We'll be introducing our stories because it inspired our project proposal and our target audience, who are youth like us, ages 18 to 24.
So I'm Tiffany, and I'm a second-generation Chinese Canadian with parents who immigrated to Canada from Hong Kong. I grew up in Richmond and often thought that Richmond was the Chinatown of Lower Mainland, and that was because I had no connection to Chinatown or any understanding of its history.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Amin, and I'm a second-generation born Kenyan. Grew up in Canada. I'm mixed Pakistani and Punjabi. I have no connections to Chinatown, but I see Chinatown as a place that helps portray what a society should be like, and I really like how it connects the community.
Hi, I'm Sophia. My parents immigrated from Taiwan to Canada when I was a baby. I too don't have deep connections to Chinatown. Taking this class encouraged me to grapple with first-generation realities. You see, when my grandmother passed away last month, I was forced to confront a Western culture that encouraged me all my life to pursue personal choices. Then I found myself wondering how to balance my more Western tendencies with my family's collectivist expectations for how to experience grief. As a first generation, it's an important opportunity to explore an identity that's shaped by these various cultural tensions. While researching Vancouver's Chinatown, we came across many examples of youth-led organizations that were doing meaningful work for the Chinatown community. We were so inspired by their work, and wanted to help spread awareness around these organizations. We felt that there is an opportunity to connect even more youth to Chinatown by making them accessible. We think the best way to connect these organizations is to create an all-in-one, easy access, virtual resource platform. We believe that our site serves as an excellent bridge between youth and existing youth organizations. We chose a simple name, Chinatown Youth Resource Hub, so that youth can easily recognize, remember, and understand what it does. We would like to propose the possibility of building on the already strong pool of organizations. We propose a resource hub for engagement opportunities and stories within Chinatown.
So while we are researching, we were so inspired by Chinatown House's physical hub that we wanted to propose and create a virtual hub. While Chinatown House is a physical hub for organizations who have offices in Chinatown, we think youth with no connections to Chinatown would really benefit from having an online community platform, which increases accessibility. So for our website design, we specifically looked at different websites at how community-based organizations effectively communicated, created a community, and made their site accessible. We found lots of inspiration and felt that there were elements that we'd like to incorporate into ours. So Shades of Sustainability is a really good example of effective communication through storytelling. They feature stories of sustainability of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, and effectively build a community through these stories. Another example is Volunteer Match, and they're a good example of a resource hub that helps users navigate volunteer positions in their communities and effectively create a sense of connection with their audiences by highlighting a volunteer story each month.
So for our research review, we wanted to see what already existed and how other people did it. We specifically looked at youth-led organizations, Chinatown, that focused on community engagement. To bolster our research scope, we also looked at youth-led organizations in New York and San Francisco Chinatown. We found a variety of excellent examples that intrigued us. So for Chinatown Action Group, the Chinatown Action Group does a really good job of communicating their goals and outlining their issues in Chinatown, solutions, and how to become involved. Their website is bilingual, so it incorporates both those who are young, old, Chinese, and non-Chinese. For the next one, the Youth Collaborative for Chinatown, what we think Youth Collaborative does well is that they help create a sense of community through social activities. For example, opportunities like the Mahjong socials, which help connect with seniors. Their website also incorporates good use of infographics. For the Yarrow site, we found that it incorporates both the youth and elderly. The website is also bilingual, which incorporates seniors who have problems understanding onto the website. On the website, we also found volunteer opportunities. And for the WA Foundation works and involves a variety of engagement methods, from workshops to reports. As a youth, we'd be interested in getting involved, but recognize that it can be harder to find through a single platform.
Overall, we hope that Chinatown Youth Resource Hub will be a meaningful way to leverage stronger connections for already existing Chinatown youth initiatives. We'd like to suggest that organizations can expect to benefit from this idea. A resource hub will help already strong sites develop their social media presence. Organizations can put their focus on community engagement. The success of the site can be measured through analytics, website visits, and demographics. The stories section is where youth can submit their own stories and their experience in Chinatown and find connections with other youth through the stories. We think it's a good idea to feature descriptions of Chinatown youth organizations and their work in Chinatown. So even when there are no engagement opportunities, the website will still offer information about organizations to be on the lookout for. Our site will also include a variety of visual media and a text-to-read audio feature. The purpose is to leverage accessibility. We understand that text-heavy content is not welcoming to people with learning disabilities. we're very excited to pitch a site that's really reflected on creating equitable and inclusive spaces for diverse audiences. On behalf of our group, we thank you for listening. We'd also like to thank Dr. Yu, Jenny, Jillian, and Joanna for their guidance, and to our classmates for their support. I'd like to pass this on to the audience for questions and feedback.
Great, thank you. Thanks to that was our last group, Sophia and Aman and Tiffany. So as Jenny and Jillian get some questions for that group, just wanted to thank all the groups. So, you know, they've been working really hard over the last 2 weeks, and many of you are seeing the endpoints of the preparation work and the thought they've put in. And again, we kept on hammering on them, you know, concise, less is more. And I really appreciate this last group, in fact, the amount of work they've put in really the last week or so to scope and to make hard decisions. And I think the most important thing for us is to work together, to really, you know, communicate, become one single team. And that really is one of the things that you can see in the end product. And so I just wanted to say how much I appreciated Tiffany and Aman and Sophia for the work they've put in a very challenging environment of not being able to actually get together face to face, but to do it through Zoom or email or text messaging. And so again, kudos to them for having done that. Jenny, Jillian, we got.
Yeah, we have a question for this group. So what did you find the most surprising or interesting when you pursued this topic?
Okay, so I can go. I think the thing that I found most surprising, and this sort of goes back to our stories as youth who didn't have much like deep connections to Chinatown, we were really inspired by the amount of organizations there actually are that are youth-led and that encourage youth to get involved with different sorts of activities and leadership and volunteer opportunities in Chinatown. And like if we could go back in time to when we were maybe in high school, we would have very much liked to get involved. And I think that's very much why we were so inspired to do this, to do this proposal, I mean.
Great, thanks, Sophia. Aman, do you have any others have anything to add to Tiffany or Aman?
Yeah, we like what Sophia was saying about the amount of organizations. For me, I know it kind of sounds bad, but like I just thought there was like one organization, but like the amount, just like I was just so surprised with like what they were doing, like the Foundation, the Euro, what they did with the seniors as well. So yeah, I was just really surprised and happy about how they're connecting the community.
And I think for myself, same as Aman and Sophia, but one other thing that I found really interesting was how a lot of the organizations were really focused on being intergenerational. And I think from our own family, I feel like my relations with my grandparents weren't as good as they could be. And I think like having these organizations that connect youth and elderly is just a really great opportunity and something that I want to be a part of as well. And I want to do that with my own grandparents as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks all three of you, and thanks for that great question. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about your presentation was that you started with that personal, and you've returned to it in the Q&A part. But then you really were able to use that to think about gaps or opportunities about, and I really appreciate also, since UBC has an office at Chinatown House, that the idea of the physical hub and trying to think of creating a virtual version of that, again, that it grew out in some sense of exactly what you saw as the strength, but also the kinds of opportunities that remained to take that online. So again, thanks to this group. Jenny and Jillian, maybe if there are some of the questions from Slido that we didn't get to for any and every group, that maybe you can curate and pull some, and we can ask some of the students to answer some of those right now.
This one kind of a question that I think would be applicable to all the groups, but we might start with this last group. It's a question from John. He says, curious about maintenance and continuity of the content over the long term.
A good financial challenges as you move on, and let's say you can produce and create and implement some of these for the over the summer. What would be some of your ideas about long term? How can they be maintained, especially considering how many of your projects have a lot of administrative, I mean, you need someone there to be doing the interaction and producing these kinds of things. So any thoughts? Just that I know that some of you gave a lot of thought actually to the sustainability of some of your proposals, but anybody want to throw some quick answers, just on.
Yeah, just one thing that that during my research I found out is how helpful it is for the viewers or followers of your webpage to actually form their own communities online, like their own groups. So even if when you're not updating or you're not advertising all the time, they advertise to people that they know, to their people that they're familiar with, and then they form this, like, it's not about just you advertising all the time, but to get your viewers to advertise for you. So I think that's like an interesting idea. And also in terms of certain financial ways of sustaining our project, there could be certain linkages, so like online shopping, grocery, that are cultural products created by local people, so they can preserve their culture at the same time without threatening the integrity and the legacy of their communities.
Any of the other groups have some quick how to? I know that one of the earlier groups was it talked a little bit about how some of these social media platforms have built-in user, I guess, ways in which the like YouTube, the web hosts can get money from hits, but I don't know if anybody wants to talk a little bit more of that, or we can.
For our project, so I took the liberty to ask my father, who's a software engineer and does these websites. So it wouldn't cost a lot. You'd have to buy a domain, and then you'd have to get a monthly fee of like Wix, and it's like start your own sort of website, and then you can move on to professionals, keeping it updated and adding. So yeah, it wouldn't be as hard or financially costable, and
Great. Thank you, Iman. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think just a quick note, I would also add, given like for our project, I think that communication and really having a strong relationship with the organizations that we're featuring is a really good sustainable approach in the long run. Like being on the same agenda, making sure that what we're posting on the website is really representative of what they also would like to see on that social media platform.
Great, thanks, Sophia. So I'm mindful of time, and there's a lot of questions, and so I think maybe one of the things we will do is we're going to pass a lot of these questions on to the students that have been posted, and what we'll do is we'll try to, when we post the recording of today's community showcase, we'll also perhaps feature some of the questions that were asked from them that they couldn't get to, today, and we'll ask them to actually post some answers, written answers, or maybe even little clips showing them giving some answers to the questions. So maybe that'll give you a reason to come back and to a site. So we'll let everyone know who's here today when we post back questions and answers from the students. But I wanted to actually sort of segue as a way of saying that, the model for this course has always been, and the way that our partners, both on campus and off, have thought of the sort of research done by students and what they learn and what they discover, then being applied not only in the class in terms of their project, but as they come back and then for the rest of the summer through internships, and if some of their ideas are good proposals, to actually implement them in terms of local collaborations and partnerships with nonprofit orgs and institutions like museums and things like that. So I'm going to pass actually and ask Joanna to talk a little bit about that as a way of also acknowledging our partners, many of whom are here tonight and still, you know, still listening. Joe?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you to all the students, but also thank you so much to our community partners for this specific course. We want to recognize that when we engaged you in the past years, but also in January and February, things have changed so much. So I know Henry talks a lot about how our students and teaching team have been really resilient in rolling with the punches, but we also really want to thank our UBC partners, but also community course community partners for letting us do this, for supporting this. I understand that Charlotte Humphreys from Go Global said that at the beginning of March, there were 20 Go Global programs that were supposed to run, and it went down to 2 in the course of a day because of COVID-19, and just really want to acknowledge that this wouldn't be possible without support from people. And I just want to also point to the fact that every year we get some support from VP International and Go Global and Land and Food Systems and Faculty of Arts to continue the global local learning experience. So some of the students actually that presented have been hired to work with some of our community partners, such as Asia Pacific Foundation, Burnaby Village Museum, Museum of Vancouver, and Richmond Museum this summer, as well as at St. John's UBC, to conduct more research work and to hopefully implement some of the ideas that came out of this class in a very helpful way. So I just want to, again, thank everybody who has believed in this course, especially Taryn from Go Global and Cheryl and Ricky Yada, Roxana, just some UBC leaders that have been so supportive of us. So thank you very much for that.
Okay. Thanks, thanks, Joanna. I just want to echo that. Again, we're living through very strange times, and the uncertainty is so high about. Again, we're online. If you had asked me in January that all of UBC would be online by the end of March, I would have laughed at you as a totally insane idea. But here we are, a whole university of 50,000 plus students. Classes online, and so this class is no different in that sense of what's happened with COVID-19, and yet in some sense what the students who you saw the presentations from today have had to do, and who I think have responded so well to that challenge, and shown an incredible amount of, I think, creativity and just sheer hard work and thoughtfulness on how to do global research, you know, while limited to your computer or your iPad or your iPhone, and then to work together in groups in a very intense short period of time of only 6 weeks together, and then to scope a problem, analyze what's out there that could help you to solve that problem, and then to present a proposal at the end of it, as you saw today, on that next step of doing it. And so one of the things again, for me, this is as much the first time I've seen the final product from a lot of the groups. They've been working on it literally probably until 4 o'clock today, trying to, hone it and polish it. But we're going to actually, talk to them. If some of you want to hang out, I'm going to, bring this presentation and community showcase to a formal end. But one of the things I've noticed with a lot of the Zoom events is this kind of like, okay, bye, and then everybody leaves, and it feels kind of empty. If this was an in-person event, we would, even as we, sort of formally close the showcase, there'd be time to hang around and come up and ask questions and things like that. So what I'll do is try to create a virtual version of that, which is that as I bring this showcase to an end, anybody who wants to stick around online with us on Zoom, feel free to not leave right away. If you want to, in fact, follow through with a question to some of the students or to us, feel free to. We're going to stay on for a little while, and we're going to actually celebrate this moment of our students, the culmination of their hard work over this semester, and to kind of debrief with them a little bit and talk and ask them questions. So please feel free to mingle and hang out with us if you feel like it. But for others, I'm sure you've got to move on to dinner and kids and other things too. So I wanted to thank everyone, all of you, for coming to this showcase, for supporting our students, for supporting them by coming to this showcase. If you want to know more about that research that a lot of our students have done, let us know. Just drop us a line, because as I said, there's written long reports that are really the heart of their analysis, some of which much of which you haven't had a chance to see. Again, thanks to to Michael Schwartz and John Atkin for really helping scope the project aims itself. And so I know that hopefully some of you have learned a little from our students as well. So thank you all. Thanks especially, I just want to say again how Joanna, Jillian, and Jenny, under incredibly trying circumstances of reinventing the course again and again over these five syllabi and over the last few months, to again applaud their work and that of the students to really do this under really challenging circumstances. But the resilience they've shown in just meeting that challenge is really inspiring. So thanks again, and thank you to everyone again for joining us. Great job. And again, for those who want to hang out a little bit, you can use the hand feature to basically ask some questions or share any comments you want. So thanks a lot for coming, everyone, and again, thanks to the students and to Jenny and Joanna and Jillian for a great job overseeing this process.
I think on behalf of Jillian and I just want to say a big thank you to Henry and Joanna for helping to guide this whole process as well. We've had to be adaptable and flexible, but I think under your leadership, Jillian and I have grown a lot, and I think the students have had a really meaningful experience as well. So I really want to thank you both.
Thanks, Jenny. Great, so